Hello, geometry. Nice to see ya. Thanks for tuning in. Let's jump right into it. We're looking at 7.5 equations of a circle. So, 7.5. We are looking at, like I just said, equations of a circle, and we're going to graph circles. Let's take a look at how that works. So, the equation of a circle. Oof, I was mentally unprepared to film this video. So here we go. A little candid moment here. I gotta read this for a second. Consider the circle in the coordinate plane that has its center at hk. Okay? So this is some xy coordinate, h and k. Let P be any point on the circle and let coordinates of P be x, y. Create a right triangle by drawing a horizontal line through C and a vertical line through P. So we're making a right triangle, okay? Don't overcomplicate it, okay? Don't overcomplicate it. We have a right triangle. The coordinates of point A will be xk. What are the lengths of the legs of CAP? Well, if we take x and subtract h, we find the distance, right? Because we're talking about the x values. So like, say this coordinate is at 10 and this is at 5. Well, what's the distance between 10 and 5? 5. 10 minus 5 is 5. So what you do is you subtract the two, right? That's x minus h long. And then what about the vertical distance? Well, it's how far apart are the y values, y and k. So you subtract those as well. So now, if you were to write the Pythagorean theorem, this distance of x minus h squared is leg number 1, a squared plus b squared, leg number 2, equals c squared. So, what is c, though, in this situation? This hypotenuse, what does that represent? It represents the radius of the circle. Yeah? So that's actually r squared, r being the circle. And that right there is the equation of a circle. That right there is the equation of a circle. Now, what do I mean it's the equation of a circle? Like maybe you're like a little puzzled by what my exact terminology is there. Well, what I'm saying is, if I type in x minus 1 squared, this is Desmos. I don't really use that too much in our class, but this is Desmos, a graphing calculator, right? And if I type this, look at what I've just created. Why not? I was like, why does that look so weird? Look at what I've just created. A circle. By typing x minus 1 squared, y minus 4 squared equals 5 squared. Now, think back to what we were just doing, right? What did h and k represent? They represent the center of the circle. They represent the center of the circle. Okay? So, what is the center of my circle? 1, 4. Look at that. There's a center at 1, 4. Now you might look at this and go, well, Mr. Skis, it says -1 and -4. Well, it's the opposite, okay? You might see a -1, but the center is at 1, 4, okay? And what does this 5 represent? Think back to what we just saw. That was radius squared. So the radius ought to be 5. So if you look at this circle, you can see my mouse here moving. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wide. And I can move this around. Make it -3. Oh, it moved to the right. Make this +7. It's going to move it down. Check this out. Plus 7. It moved it down, right? All the way down to -7, right? So this equation is like directions, okay? I don't need you to stress about how I came up with the equation, right? That's not the gist of our lesson today. I don't need you to stress about how I came up with this equation. What I want you to stay focused on is how to read the equation. These two numbers tell you the center of the circle, and this number right here tells you the radius. Now, I wrote it as 5 squared. I could just as easily write 49. What is the radius? 7. Because 49 is 7 squared, okay? In other words, you have to take the square root of this number in order to find the radius. And this number is not always going to be a perfect square, right? You can see here that the radius is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wide. I can make this 35. What's the square root of 35? I don't know. It's really close to 36. The square root of 36 is 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wide. But the second I make it 35, you can see it shrinks in just a little bit. So what is the square root of 35, you might ask? Well, it's 5.9. So the radius of this circle is 5.9. So please let this sink in here. These two numbers are directions on how to find the center, and then you take the square root of this number and you get your radius, okay? Let's see that play out several times over, okay? So, write the equation for the given circle. The equation would be x minus 1 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals 9. It's always the opposite, okay? It's always the opposite. So you see a positive 1, you have to write x minus 1. You see a minus 2, you write y plus 2. And when we graph this guy, what does this mean? The center is at, well, I guess we don't need to graph it. I was about to graph it on there, but I won't worry about that right now. Let's write another one. How about you just write it for me, okay? I mean, it's pretty straightforward, right? Opposite, opposite. Just follow the format. It's okay if you get it wrong, but follow the format. What's it going to be? The first question of the video. What is our equation? Opposite of 0? Well, that's still going to be x minus 0 all day. It doesn't really matter. You don't even have to write minus 0, to be honest. And then this is y minus 4 squared equals... Now, this might have thrown you for a loop, but how did I get 9? I squared 3, right? Well, what happens when you square 2 root 3? You can do that in your head, or you can plug it into a calculator. The answer is 12. The answer is 12. If you can't do that in your mind, just plug it into a calculator. But just know 2 times 2 is 4, and root 3 times root 3 is 3. So 4 times 3 is 12. So there's the equation of our circle. Now, what if I gave you a circle and you had to write the equation? Well, you just need to make an observation of, okay, where is the center? It's at negative 1, 4. And what is the radius? 3. Oh, well, that's similar to what we had up there, right? The opposite of negative 1 is positive 1. The opposite of 4 is negative 4. And 3 squared is 9. Boom. That is the equation of our circle. Always the opposite, and you just square the radius. All there is to it, people. Let me super zoom in on this circle so that way you can see it, right? Make some observations here. Count. What is the radius? Count. Where is the center? Jot those down for half a second, right? And this is my next question. This is my next question. Can you write the equation of the circle? You should have identified that the center of the circle is at 2, 0, and that the radius is 1, 2, 3, 4. So, x minus 2 squared plus y minus 0 squared. It doesn't even matter if you write minus 0, right? Equals 4 squared is 16. Don't forget to square the 4, right? That's a very common mistake, to forget to square it, and you just end up writing the number. Okay? And now we are given a couple of equations, and all we have to do is graph them. All we have to do is graph them. So let's state what the center is and the radius is for each of these before I graph, because you should be able to read it and almost instantly know what the values are. Now this E1 here might be throwing you for a loop for a second. You might be, well, there's no parentheses. That doesn't even look like the same equations. Well, guess what? Like I was saying, you don't have to write -0, right? -0 means nothing. So you can just ignore that, right? So actually our center is at 0, 0. And our radius is 3. So there's the center at 0, 0. And my beautiful circle. Whoa, do you see that? There it is. A radius of 3. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. What is the center of this one? It's always the opposite, so it's at 3, comma, -2. And the radius is 2. So our center is at right 3, down 2, and our radius is only 2. So there's that. Make it a little bit bigger to have a radius of 2. There we go. That looks about right. So last question, end of the video. We're only at 12 minutes. I'm not continuing on. We're gonna break this up into 2 sections, folks. We're gonna break this up into 2 sections. So this is the last question. Only 12 minutes in. What is the center and what is the radius? 2-part question. You had a couple of answer choices on screen. The center is at -1, 2. And the radius is 3. Simply the opposite. So you go left 1, up 2. There's the center and a radius of 3. That looks about right. 3. And that's all we're doing today, folks. We're graphing circles and writing the equations of circles. Hope that felt easy for you. And I hope you have a great rest of your day, evening, whatever you're experiencing. I'll see you next time.